Say hi, Pro.
Hi, Pro. Could y'all pull the blinds open a little more like you need?
Bro, if I got you a tie with my face on it, would you wear it?
Yes.
Pretty ugly tie.
I'll definitely wear it.
Funny.
Okay, 648 in your book.
It's all about the angles, bro.
Section 22.3. We're talking about plant hormones today.
I can't see it.
Just like you have hormones that help control your bodily functions, like your growth. You've probably heard of human growth hormone. Some of the athletes take it to get bigger.
I take HGH myself.
I can personally vouch.
Plants have hormones too. They control their growth. And one of the plant hormones that makes it bigger is called auxin. Auxin, A-U-X-I-N. Now, here's the way auxins work. What a hormone does is a hormone sticks to a receptor on the surface of the cell. And for some reason, this picture is really blurry. So let me just show you here on the board. If we have a cell, here's a cell. On the surface of the cell will be receptors, protein receptors. Proteins proteins that can capture things. So what happens is auxin, this hormone, is released and travels through the plant's body and will dock itself or be captured by the proteins on the surface of the cell. And when the auxin is captured by the cell, that triggers changes in the cell.
What's an auxin?
Auxin is a growth hormone for a plant cell. So the auxin attaches, up here please. The auxin attaches and then the cell changes. And what the cell does is the cell pumps hydrogen ions. You see this H+. It pumps the hydrogen ions out of the cell. And what that does is it weakens the cell wall and allows water to rush into the cell and the cell expands. It's basically a way for a cell to for plant cells to grow, to get bigger. The cells will fill up with water and expand, and it helps plants get larger and causes some of the movements that you see inside plants. And I'll show you some plant movements in a minute. But plants can move. I don't know if you knew this, but plants can turn toward the light. I don't know if you knew that like a sunflower can follow the light across over as the day goes by. And so auxins help cause the movement of some of these plants. There's another growth hormone called gibberellins.
Couldn't hear the guy say it?
Gibberellins. Gibberellins is a group of plant hormones that are transported in vascular tissue and that can affect seed growth, stimulate cell division, and cause cell elongation.
Gibberellins.
That sounds like it's from 1940.
Here's a plant that is normal. And this plant has had gibberellins applied to it. And you can see it makes its flowers grow really long and tall.
And there's more.
Again, it's a growth hormone. And it, like auxin, causes plants to expand in size. Plant cells to expand in size.
But the one on the left has more leaves than the bottom.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things gibberellins does is it promotes stem growth and does not promote leaf growth. So it's caused certain parts of the plant to increase in size, while other parts don't increase as much.
So if you gave a plant like auxins, if there were auxins and gibberellins, they get like wide.
Yeah, they get bigger, and farmers will do this to make their fruits bigger and their plants grow faster. They often apply these hormones. Yes.
What if you gave that really big leaf from the video yesterday Gibberellins and Auxins?
I don't know. That's
Would
a
it
good
be like the size of the classroom?
Maybe even get bigger.
It's like eating ground.
Little shop horrors.
Ethylene is another growth hormone.
Flies.
It affects the ripening of fruits. It makes fruits ripen faster. Ripening is a process where a fruit goes from not being able to be eaten to being able to be eaten. You've probably seen the bananas in the grocery store when they're green. And you buy them and you take them home and you let them sit a few days and they ripen. They turn yellow where you can eat them. If you've ever tried to eat a green banana, it doesn't taste as good. It's harder to chew. It's not ready. And the reason why is inside the banana there is cellulose, the hard structure that makes up plant cell walls. And that cellulose is destroyed by an enzyme, and that causes the ripening of the fruit. When the cellulose is all destroyed, the fruits are softer. When the cellulose is intact, the fruits are real hard and you can't eat them. So, ethylene is a hormone that causes fruits to ripen faster. It's a gas. It's a gaseous hormone. And it travels around. Have you ever heard the saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch?
Yeah.
Well, if you take a ripened apple, an apple that's ready to eat, and you break the skin of it, you cut the skin a little bit, the ethylene, the ethylene gas inside the apple will leak out, and it will go into the other apples and cause them to ripen faster. And that's where that saying comes from. One bad apple does spoil the bunch because the gas leaks out and causes the rest of them to ripen faster than they would. And eventually, once it ripens for long enough, it's spoiled. Yeah?
Oh, was ethylene, you said like ethylene gas, is that like ethanol kind of? Or no?
It's pretty much the same structure. It's a little bit different structure than ethanol. Ethanol has an OH group. It's a different chemical structure. But yeah, it's basically the same two-carbon structure. It's a molecule that has two carbons. So it's the basic same root basic structure. Once you take organic chemistry, you'll understand that. That's much later in college. Here's some unripened tomatoes. I guess these are tomatoes.
These look like apples. No, they don't. They look like tomatoes.
And these are where they're ripened. They're starting to ripen. Now, cytokinins. Cytokinins are hormones. Have you ever heard the word cytokinin before?
No.
I don't think you have.
I just heard a second ago.
Cytokinesis, Bennett. Where did you hear that?
In mitosis.
Yes! Remember in cell division, when cells are dividing, you had this prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase.
Cytokinesis.
And then cytokinesis, when the cell actually comes apart. Cytokinins are hormones that cause the cells to divide, to multiply more rapidly. Cytokinins. And so that's also another growth hormone. Here is a piece of plant tissue where cytokinins have been applied to the plant tissue.
So it's kind of
And it depends upon how much cytokinins you give the plant tissue. But here they gave the plant tissue a certain amount and it sprouted roots. And roots started growing from the plant tissue. And here they gave it a different amount of cytokinins and leaves start growing from it.
This is all the same plant?
Yeah, it's just plant tissue that's been removed from a plant and chopped up in little pieces. And if they give that tissue a certain amount of cytokinins, it forms roots. A different amount, it forms leaves. And a different amount, it'll form, these are young flowers. So the cytokinins can control what part of the plant it becomes. The cytokinin levels determine, okay, this part's going to be a root because it's got a certain cytokinin level. This part's going to be leaf. This part's going to be a flower. Here's a little video where it shows some guys. This is kind of an old video, but it shows some guys working with these plants in a lab. I thought it was kind of interesting and applied a little bit.
Having produced the most desirable rubber plants by cross-pollination, horticulturists can reproduce them over and over without growing them from seed. By a process called cloning, horticulturists grow new rubber plants from small parts of the original plant.
Okay, this is part of a rubber plant. And what they've done is they've cut it up into little pieces. They've just taken a plant that's alive and cut it up into little pieces. Now watch what they do with it.
Material from the original plant is cut off and nurtured under carefully controlled conditions. The new rubber plants are exact copies of the parent plant. Cloning allows horticulturists to reproduce a selected plant as often as they want without any variation in the plant's qualities.
Now each of these test tubes has a bit of that original rubber plant in it. And what they do is they give it hormones and allow it to grow, and it'll grow into a whole new plant. And that plant is a clone of the original plant that they took it from. So what farmers will do is they'll find a plant that produces, say, the best bananas, the biggest bananas, or the most juicy watermelons. And they'll take that and they'll cut it up into little pieces and put it in test tubes like this and clone it. You see? So it forms copies of itself. And so you can pick the best of the plants that you have if you're a farmer and make millions of them. All copies of the original. Now, let's take a look at some plant movements. If you look on page 650, talks about plant responses. Plant responses are movements that plants make responding to some stimulus. Now, a nastic response is one where it's not in any certain direction toward the stimulus or away from the stimulus. For instance, the mimosa leaf. Have you ever seen these mimosas? No, you're talking about
The alcoholic beverage.
an alcoholic beverage. That's different. These things are plants where they're open like this, and if you touch them, they close up. And that's called a nastic response. It's a response. It doesn't matter which direction you touch it from, they'll close. A response that's independent of the direction of the stimulus.
How fast did it close?
I'm going to show you a little video of it here.
Ferocious spines, painful stings, poisonous sap, near perfect disguise. Plants seem to have evolved every conceivable defense for their leaves, which by their very nature have to be spread wide to catch the light and are therefore very visible. But this plant, the sensitive mimosa, common beside tropical roadsides, has perhaps the most radical and certainly the most dramatic solution of all. One touch makes it fold its leaflets. Another tap, and it flops to the ground. How does that help? Well, watch how a hungry leaf-eating grasshopper gets on. Obviously, there's a splendid meal ahead. But before it even takes a bite, the meal vanishes.
Dropped him off. So that's a nastic response. There are other nastic responses. There's have you ever heard of the prayer plant?
Absolutely.
The prayer plant, every night, it's got its leaves out like this. It folds them up like this every night. And it's looked to someone like the plant is praying. So they call it the prayer plant. So it folds them up, and then the next morning it opens them up. And it does that every day. So that's called a nastic response. It's not in any certain direction. The trophic responses are in a certain direction. And you'll see what I mean when I give you some examples. A plant's growth response, it's a response to some stimulus. And we have phototropism is a response to light. Gravitropism is a response to gravity. Thigmotropism is a response to touch. Let's talk about phototropism first. I got a better video.
Phototropism is the growth response of a plant toward light and is caused by an unequal distribution of auxin in the plant's stem. There is more auxin on the side of the stem away from the light, which results in cell elongation, but only on that side. As these cells lengthen, the stem bends toward the light.
What happens here, if you have a plant and you set it, say in a room, like if I had a plant sitting on this desk, because the light is over here coming from the window, it would start to bend toward the light. And the reason why is because the cells on the side that's on the shady side, auxin is released by the plant onto those cells. Remember, auxin was one of those growth hormones. And what happens when auxin touches a cell?
It elongates.
It elongates. So imagine here I'm the plant, and the cells on this side are elongating. If this side gets longer, I'm going to bend that way, toward the light. So the shady side elongates, and that causes bending toward the light. If this side were to elongate, I'd go the other way. You see?
If both sides elongate.
If both sides elongate, I go straight up.
Yeah.
If you push a plant over, it shows what we call gravitropism, where the side, the downward side, elongates and causes the plant to grow upward. Do this with your parents' plants next time they go out of town. They go out of town, turn them all on their sides. They start to grow like that. Then the day before they get back, set them all back. And they'll come home and all their plants will be growing sideways. And they'll go, what happened to the plants? And you go, I don't know.
Maybe it's some auxin.
Wouldn't that be funny?
I'll be mad.
Now, the reason how a plant knows which way is up and down, if you look inside a plant cells, you see these little grains. They're little granules that are heavy. And gravity pulls the granules down, and that lets the plant know which way is down. And cells on the lower side, the plant will release auxin on those cells, and they'll elongate, and that'll turn the plant back upward. Those little particles are called statoliths. I don't think your book talks about that. That's from the AP book. But you can see the stem, this is a corn seed. And the stem is going to turn upward, and the root is going to turn downward. That's part of the root too. So auxins are released here, and that causes the root to go downward. And auxins are released here, and that causes the stem to go upward. I got great video footage of this. Watch these things turning.
Taylor has a question.
Oh, sorry, Taylor. Yes.
May I use the restroom?
Yeah, you want to see these videos
after
first?
the video.
Okay.
A main characteristic of living things is their ability to respond to a stimulus. Plant stems respond to light by growing toward its source. This is called phototropism. Plant roots respond to gravity. A simple experiment shows that roots always respond to gravity by growing down. This is called gravitropism. Some plant movements don't seem related to a response. These are called nastic responses. For example, some climbing plants grow in a series of rhythmic movements that help the plant find a support up which it can grow.
Isn't that cool? That's called time-lapse video. You're going to miss the best one, Taylor.
Observe how these plants bend toward the light. Now let's see what happens when that light is turned out, and another light is turned on at the opposite side. This response of bending toward the light is called phototropism.
Strobe light.
Isn't that cool?
How long is this taking over?
Hours. Days.
Really?
Here we're going to observe the effects of a plant's response to gravity. This response is called Geno Tropism. When a plant is turned from its normal growing position, the roots will again grow downward, exhibiting a positive response toward gravity. Roots tend to grow toward the center of the earth, whereas stems show a negative response and grow away from it.
Cool.
So let's talk about those words there. For instance, we have phototropism, and we have gravitropism. Now we also have the words positive and negative.
Bro, I'd rather call it geotropism.
You can call it geotropism if you want.
That's what I call it in this video.
Yeah. Positive means growing toward something. So positive phototropism is growth toward the light. What would positive gravitropism be?
The stem growing up.
Growing downward.
Growing toward gravity, which is growing downward. What shows positive gravitropism? What part of the plant?
The roots.
The roots. What shows negative gravitropism? The stems show negative gravitropism. And some plants show negative phototropism, growing away from the light.
Why? Why do they do that?
Well, there are plants where the seed sprouts and the plant starts to grow, and wherever it's light, it goes away from the light because it's a climbing vine. And it will crawl along the ground away from the light until it gets in the shade, and then it'll find a plant that's making it shady, and it'll wrap around it and grow up.
So then it shows thymiotropism.
Thigmotropism, when it touches the plant, it shows thigmotropism because it can feel the plant and go around.
Gosh,
very good, Graham. Yes.
Those lights they're using?
Yes.
What kind of lights they use?
Just regular lamps.
Like lights?
Yeah, you can do it with regular lamps. As a matter of fact, if you look at this plant up here, do you see how it's all leaning?
I have a weekend.
You see how that's leaning?
Yeah.
The reason why it's leaning is I had it sitting up here for several months, and it grew toward the lights in the room. Grew that way.
That's cool.
And so when I got back from Christmas and I noticed it was all leaning toward the lights in the room, so I turned it around hoping that it'll bend back the other way now and straighten out. But it hasn't done it yet.
Well, the lights are off.
Awesome when it's bending towards the light.
Yeah, it bends towards the lights in the room.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
So leave the lights on every day.
Yeah.
I think it'll turn around eventually.
Wait, did you leave the lights on over Christmas break?
No, but there's light. I mean, I left the windows open and the light comes into the room from the windows, so it bends towards the light. Whoops.
Oh, no, we got.
Hey, guess what?
A. It's A.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, gotta say your exit line, bro.
Willis out.